These 3 episodes are the first half of the 57th expedition beyond the walls. And they add a whole new dimension to the story with the introduction of a new, well, for me at least, a new and very unexpected kind of Titan. Somehow, Arvin's plan works just a little too well for me to believe it was all an accident, so let's get to it. As the title says, this is the 57th expedition. And if that's spread out fairly evenly over the 100 and some odd years since the Titans appeared, I guess that's less than 1 expedition a year, right? And I do believe that shows that it's kind of a big deal. I mean, it's not super rare, but it's also not exactly an everyday or an every week thing. And I think that also gives us just a little bit of an idea of the importance of this expedition and the planning that probably has gone on for this expedition and all of the logistics involved in it. And as soon as it gets started, the Corps makes contact with Titans pretty much right away after they pass through the gate. And they're in the ruins of this former town that's now outside of the safe zone, and it sets it up right away that this is not going to be an easy passage for the Survey Corps. Of course, I never expected it to be an easy passage, did I? But with their almost immediate contact with Titans, I really start to wonder why they don't travel at night, because back in episode 15, Hanji established that the Titans are sun-powered or solar-powered, and they're just not active at night. So I'd imagine that that would be the best time to move if you really wanted to avoid contact with the Titans. And I've got to say that this show's been pretty good so far at providing information like that, like explaining why they're moving during the day instead of the night. They fill in these potential, I guess I'll call them plot holes, although that term might be a little too strong. So I'd say the reason for moving during the day rather than night will probably be spelled out to us at some point. And in fact, I'd say it's demonstrated by what happens at the end of these 3 episodes. You know, if you read behind the lines a little bit, you might see that Erwin wanted to make contact with the Titans. Of course, he doesn't publicly declare that that's what he wants, but it kind of seems obvious by where we end up, doesn't it? And from the beginning, and then again throughout these episodes, the story stresses the value of the formation and the importance of each part kind of doing its own job. It shows the way they have to form this trust in one another, but they also have to stay focused on each individual part's own duty. They can't be concerned with whether or not another part is performing their duty as well as they'd like them to. And sometimes the duty that one group or one individual may have in this formation, well, sometimes that duty might actually be to die, which is heavy. But I think trying to live is important, right? I mean, that's something that Erwin asked for at the end of episode 16. There's not really any call for vainglorious self-sacrifice here. There's no room for martyrs, but sometimes your duty may require you to die. And one key element in these stories, you know, these 3 episodes, to me it seems to be movement and speed, and it's about the chase here. And the chase is really an integral part of the plan that we'll find out eventually, though it's not really obvious to me until like the very end of the chase. But in order for a chase to be part of the plan, you have to have a chase. And in order to have a chase, someone has to run. So a courageous last stand, like I said, there's really no room for martyrs in this plan. Because a courageous last stand like the 300 Spartans at Thermopylae, well, that would cause this plan to fall apart. I think the way that this plan has to proceed in order to be successful, well, I think that's why Erwin didn't want cadets who would die if ordered to. You know, he was happy when the cadets wanted to live. And we do get a pretty good payoff on that element if you ask me. But after the Survey Corps pushes out of the city ruins, the terrain opens up and we have like this grassland with just a few sparse trees here and there. And this change in landscape, it really negates the value of their mobility gear. I mean, they even call it out during the episodes. And it also exposes them. It makes them easy to see from a distance for a nice big tall individual like a 15-meter Titan. It probably would have been better to cover this ground at night if your goal is to avoid the Titans, which, you know, we're going to see that probably wasn't Erwin's goal, even though he told them it was. Because crossing this open terrain, this open country during the day, well, that's a real effective way to dangle bait, which is pretty much what happened here. At least that's what it certainly looks like by the end of episode 19, that Erwin was dangling some bait for this special Titan that'll show up. Now, I didn't recognize this when it was going on. I thought, well, this just doesn't make sense. Why are they doing this? But every time I think I'm getting ahead of the show, I find out I'm wrong and it was going somewhere. but also getting into this open terrain, it spreads out the units, so they really have to rely on these smoke signals to direct them. And this is a scenario in which not everybody has visual confirmation of the events that are going on. And I have to think, the cynical part of me, that this is also a scenario that Erwin could exploit. He could exploit this in a way to manipulate movements. Though it wasn't in the stated plan, I don't think it's an accident at all that events lead to the tall tree forest that we're going to see. But I do just want to take a minute and pause and say, during this open terrain chase scene, that the art and the visuals, that was all really, really nice. Because so far this show's mostly taken place in more urban or claustrophobic settings, so it was kind of nice and pleasing to the eye to see things open up for a while. It also really allowed you to feel the speed of the movement, and like I said, that feeling of speed is really an important theme in these episodes. It really helps you feel like you're part of the chase. And these episodes take place almost entirely on horseback. I kind of felt like I was on a horse riding along with them with the sight lines that the animation establishes. I felt like I was moving at that quick pace while I was watching. I would honestly kind of compare watching most of these episodes, these 3 episodes, I'd compare it to the way I felt the first time I watched the famous Keanu Reeves movie Speed. It just pushes the energy and the tension and the anxiety of the situation. Very well done. But then sort of the centerpiece of the show pops into the rear view, so to speak, when the female Titan makes her presence known out on this open prairie or grassland or plain or whatever you want to call this open space they move through. Like, I don't even know if Europe has prairies or if that's a totally North American thing. I don't really know what to call this open terrain they pass through, so I'll probably default to calling it a prairie every now and then, even though I know that's technically not quite right. But this female Titan that shows up, she's clearly different from the Titans we've seen before. I mean, first off, she's female, and they even went out of their way in a classroom setting in one of the early episodes to say that almost all the Titans are male in appearance. And she's really fast. I mean, she's like a track star when she's running across that field, that open space. She's also really nimble. She can dodge, and she can sort of juke people when they're trying to get at her. And she displays an intelligence that isn't really typical of any of the Titans. I'd say she displays a level of awareness that's even greater than what we've seen so far from Eren when he's in Titan form, because he gets a little foggy when he's in Titan form. And when I see this female Titan, I immediately have suspicions, and so does Armin. Like, Armin wastes no time in declaring that she's like Eren, that there's a human inside of a Titan with this extra intelligent, extra nimble, extra fast female Titan that's closing in on the Survey Corps. So the show is immediately moving past puzzling with the female Titan's nature. I mean, they go ahead and just lay it out there. Don't pat yourself on the back for guessing that this is a Titan similar to what Eren can do. So they move straight past the nature of this Titan to the real question. And that real question is not what is she, but who is she and why is she there at all? Also, she knows her weak spot, something we've never seen from a Titan before, including Eren in Titan form, and she defends the weak spot from attack by putting her hand over it to protect the back of her neck. And you can tell right away that she knows a thing or two about a thing or two. So how does she know this? And how long has she been doing this? She certainly seems experienced. And how many more are there out there that might be like her? And what is their story? And is there this whole enclave or exclave or this whole sub-community? I'm curious about that. And I really start to think, once this female Titan shows up and we see this chase going on, I really start to think that Grisha's basement is just kind of a cover story or even a red herring dangling out there. And the fact that it's just a cover story is why Erwin was so eager to talk about it so openly in episode 16. That retaking Shigansina is just the public-facing objective of this mission. And I think that this female Titan, once we start to see a few things about her and see this chase shaping up, I think that this female Titan and whatever her story is, whatever community she may or may not be a part of, I think that's probably Erwin's real goal here. And we'll get the payoff at the end of episode 19 to sort of confirm that, right? But the link between this female Titan and the humans we see, well, it becomes a real question. Like, not only is this a human inside of a Titan, but there seems to be some kind of relationship with our characters too, or at least that's how it appears to me. because she corners Armin, and she has Armin dead to rights, like he's an easy target for a squish or a stomp or a chomp to dispose of any way she wants to. But instead, she leans over, moves kind of gently, pulls back the hood, takes a look at Armin's face, and then moves on without harming Armin. So this tells me that Armin isn't who she's looking for, I guess. Or maybe there's some recognition and she knows Armin and doesn't want to harm Armin because there's some kind of pre-Titanform relationship that goes back a few years. I'm kind of guessing here, but it could be saying more than one thing in this moment. So does she spare Armin simply because he's not her target? Does she spare Armin because he's someone she recognizes and wants to show mercy to? She certainly doesn't show mercy to other people that cross her path. We do see her get very violent with other members of the Survey Corps. So is Armin special, or did she just size him up as not a threat in that moment and moved on to her objective? I really feel like she knows Armin. Like, is there a glint of recognition in the animation on the female Titan's face when she looks at Armin? And then when she's kneeling over and looking at Armin face to face and her hair's hanging in her face and Armin's hair is hanging in his face, I can't help notice that they have the same haircut and the same hair color as well. And my first instinct, when I see this female Titan charging up behind the squad and we get that glint of recognition that this is another human inside of Titan, well, I really feel like the obvious choice is that this is Aaron's mother, right? Like, Aaron's mother would know Armin because Aaron and Armin are childhood friends, so I'd imagine she would know him and maybe wouldn't want to kill him. I could understand why Aaron's mother might want to find Aaron also. So that might be why she's targeting and looking for Aaron, and why she doesn't want to kill indiscriminately people that might be Aaron. She doesn't want to kill Aaron. She wants to, maybe in her mind, rescue him. And you have to think that if Grisha did the thing to his son to help him survive this Titan apocalypse, well, it's perfectly logical to think he'd do the same thing for his wife. And also, I would think he'd maybe do the same thing for himself. So is he out there somewhere? I mean, Grisha's whereabouts have been kind of a mystery since the events of episode 1. I know it is implied that he did receive at least one bit of communication about Aaron's development and progress along with his fellow cadets, but Grisha's location has been pretty mysterious to me. And maybe Grisha's out there somewhere with his wife, and the two of them, they're just living that Titan life right now. But also, you know, I talked about the hair color and the haircut, and this Titan lady bears such a strong resemblance to Armin, just physically. So could she be Armin's mother or Armin's sister or something like that? I mean, if so, wouldn't they have introduced us to that character before now? This wouldn't be where you would just say, oh, by the way, Armin also has a mom and this is her. But maybe it is. I don't know. This show certainly doesn't seem to be beholden to traditional story structure or tropes. This show doesn't hesitate to break the rules. But maybe being a Titan Transformer just allows her to sense others like herself. Like maybe there is no personal relationship between this female Titan and Aaron, but there's some kind of sixth sense that a Titan Transformer has, so she senses that there's another one like her in with the Survey Corps, and that's why she's pursuing Aaron. I think that's also a possibility worthy of consideration. But if that's the case, if she could sense Aaron, then she probably wouldn't have to pull back the hood and look at Armin's face, would she? So maybe that theory I can go ahead and discredit and take off the list. But if there is a group of Titan, I guess we could call them Titan shifters out there, is there someone that's feeding them information about what's going on with the Survey Corps and with humanity behind the walls? Did she know Aaron and the scouts would be moving through this place at this time? Is that why Aaron's location was obscured in the plans? Did they fully expect her to get this plan, and in order to ensure a chase, she would be required to search a little bit, couldn't just hone in from the get-go on Aaron's location? Did they feed her this information hoping to get exactly the result they got? And if that's the case, I almost feel pretty certain that Arvin is aware of the mole or the spy within his ranks or within humanity's ranks, or at least he knows there is a mole, even if he doesn't know who it is, and he used that knowledge to his advantage to manipulate events into a trap that couldn't possibly feel like it was a trap. I definitely couldn't have played those cards so well myself, not as a commander or as a writer. But in all these events that have been going on for the last 4 episodes now, Armin becomes the voice of the viewer, or at least he becomes the voice of this viewer here, because that's something, like I said, I first recognized it in episode 16, and it's going strong through 17 too. He seems to be putting a voice to my thoughts almost as soon as I think about him. A storytelling feat that I kind of find darned impressive. You might think it's no big deal perhaps, but maybe I'm just a simpler guy than you because I am impressed with this. It definitely gets my respect. But as the Survey Corps speeds across the open terrain, the formation seems to be failing, and abnormals are penetrating to the center, and everything just seems to be falling apart. And I didn't consider it at the moment, but maybe this is going exactly the way Ervin wants it to. Like this guy is just out there playing chess while everybody else is playing checkers. There's this book series by a writer named Django Wexler, and the name of the series is The Shadow Campaigns, and it's this flintlock fantasy story, and it has this character inspired by Napoleon that's called Count Volnik. And one of Volnik's captains asks him how he's able to play this chess match out on the battlefield, and how he always seems to predict exactly what is going to happen at the end of all this seeming chaos, and he can always anticipate the defeats and the setbacks so that he's always in the right position at the right time to come out on top. He gets asked directly, how do you do that? And the Count does explain it in terms of chess. And he says he doesn't have to predict the other player's moves when he's playing chess. He just has to put powerful pieces in positions where powerful moves will be likely to help. And this makes him look like he is some kind of precognitive genius. Well, the reason I'm talking about Volnik is from what I'm seeing here in these 3 episodes, I think Ervin is like Volnik. I think he knows that Levi and his squad are powerful pieces. Putting them in the forest will lead to him having the best chance to achieve his objective. So I don't think it all came out beat by beat exactly like he pictured it, but I think he knew he had the right parts in the right places to potentially make the right thing happen. And also, if it didn't happen, who would have even known? You know, it was top secret from what I can tell. But I'm also starting to wonder if maybe Ervin's motivation is smaller and more personal, rather than some kind of grand social scheme. And I wonder about this primarily because Volnik's motivations in basically establishing an empire are very personal, about a single personal relationship. Oh, by the way, The Shadow Campaigns, it's an excellent book series. You'd probably like it if you're an Attack on Titan fan. But as the chase continues, the point of view members of the Survey Corps, well, they approach this dense forest with these really large trees, really tall trees. Now, some troops seem discouraged by this, but I think it really makes a lot of sense to go in there. You know, it gets them out of the open and into some cover. It allows them to use their mobility gear again. It gives them back, I wouldn't call it an advantage, but one less disadvantage. They definitely could use it much more effectively among these tall trees than they could out on the plains where they were just ankle biters, essentially. And the trees provide cover so they could maybe hide a little bit if they need to. It provides obstacles that are easier for the tiny little humans to get around than the great big titans. But I gotta say, I didn't anticipate what was coming in the least. I just thought it was a favorable change of terrain and that's it. I felt certain that going into the forest absolutely was what Ervin wanted to do, but I was just as surprised as the characters in the show when the plan comes to fruition. Like, I thought this forest kind of looked like the Ewok village on Endor, so I thought maybe Ervin was planning some kind of Return of the Jedi, Battle of Endor, booby trap kind of thing, but we don't really get that. But we see Jean. And while he's serving in a rearguard duty, Jean does make a very real observation about leaders out in the field. And he says they have to act like they know what they're doing, even if they don't, just so they don't suffer mysterious knife wounds in the back. You know, so they don't experience a mutiny of their own troops. And just seeing all this leadership potential that has been showing up in Jean over these first 18, 19 episodes now, I have to wonder if perhaps this is a little bit of foreshadowing about what sort of approach Jean is going to take and about Jean's own leadership approach in the future. But as all of this is unfolding, I do really want to know how Ervin knows so much about this female Titan. Like, is all of this knowledge just gleaned from observations during previous expeditions? We know they don't happen very often if this is only the 57th one, so I really suspect that he has some other source of information here. Like, he has some way to know more about this female Titan than we expect him to know. I feel pretty certain that he knows things that we don't know. I just don't know how much or how he knows it. That's what my real question is. And I also wonder just how much of this plan does Levi actually know? Does Levi even care to know about Ervin's plan? Perhaps Levi is satisfied just to be given an order to follow blindly, and he's another one of those blind faith troops out there that Ervin has. Maybe it comes to Levi because Levi has seen Ervin's plans in action before, and they always seem to work out like this. But he does seem unfazed by exactly how it all plays out. It seems like he's not surprised by it at the least, so that makes me think perhaps he had a heads up. But maybe that's just Levi's personality too. Maybe he's just a stoic. But we do get a look back at the squad investigating or experimenting with Aaron's Titan ability, and Hanji is genuinely disturbing to me in these scenes. She seems to have the attitude that knowledge is always worth the risk. She appears to have no real concern for consequences either. I kind of wonder, like, if on down the road in this show, that if maybe Hanji could betray the others just in order to get her knowledge or in her quest for knowledge. I also wonder if Hanji's at risk of becoming sadistic in her pursuits to the point of really being an evil character. I also wonder if her pursuits make her blind to the potential problems she could cause. And then I really think, because I speculate that this Titan situation is a man-made problem from the very beginning, I wonder if Hanji is sort of the current embodiment of these past attitudes that created the Titans in the first place. But we do discover a little bit more about Aaron's ability to transform. We discover that he needs more than just pain, but he also needs intention, a goal, and probably the more specific the better. And after this discovery, there's sort of a general reconciliation between Aaron and the squad, because the whole squad, well, they bite down on their own hands in sort of an exploration of empathy for Aaron, is what I would call it. And it serves as, in my opinion, a real demonstration of solidarity. And I think, to me, it feels like at this moment when everybody's biting their hand to see what Aaron feels, this is when it feels to me like Aaron is truly a part of the squad. Like he becomes a real member of the squad at this moment. And that's kind of a big deal because it was not very long ago that many members of this team were eager to kill Aaron when they didn't know what he was up to. When he had that sort of accidental transformation. But back in the forest, Ervin springs his trap, and he has this ambush set up not to kill the female Titan. No, he wants to capture her, and it looks like he's successful at that. And it sounds like his plan is to cut the human out of the Titan and find out who it is. But, I'm not exactly a brand new watcher. I'm watching these episodes for the first time, but 19 episodes deep, I don't expect that to be such an easy thing to do, to cut the human out of the Titan. I think maybe this won't happen as quickly and as easily as it is implied. But this plan works so well that it had to be his plan, right? Like, could he just be one of those guys that's prepared for 1,000 different possibilities? Like, did he have this big flow chart, this algorithm that if this happens, I do that, if this happens, I do that, and he just happened to have this as a possible branch? Or did he set out, did he pass through those gates into the outer walls intending to have an ambush at exactly this location at about this time to catch this exact Titan? I think that's part of the mystery that might make Ervin an intriguing character at this point. After the Titan is captured, Levi speaks to Ervin, and they don't seem to agree entirely here. Ervin doesn't seem to think that what Levi says is necessarily true. Levi says many in the rear guard died so we could have this victory. Ervin doesn't disagree. He just asks, oh, you think that's so? Which I think is kind of an implied challenge to what Levi says. It really makes me wonder what the heck is going on with the clockwork inside Ervin's brain. Is Ervin just so sure in himself that he thinks it doesn't matter if those rearguard people died or not? This is how this scenario is going to play out. Maybe he wants fewer people to die in order to achieve his goals. Maybe he wants more. I don't know, but I'm going to watch episode 20. I'm going to try to do a reaction to 20 and 22 maybe, and then we'll have another 3-part review to wrap up this 57th Expedition 6-issue arc. But until then, I'll see you later. The story stresses the value of the formation. The story stresses the value of the formation.